Hi everyone and welcome at our Library of the Faculty. This is the biggest of its kind in the Netherlands. Welcome to the feedback video of week 7, where we look at transformation of the urban structure. It's very interesting, especially to look at how the terrain influenced the other layers, as they are really different throughout the world. So enjoy watching the feedback video of week 7. Today we're going to start with a proposal from May BCT. She lives in Monterrey in Mexico, and here we can see the 5 different layers. Normally we're used to see only this kind of maps, where we can distinguish maybe the roads and the build-up area, but by distinguishing several layers we can see different kind of grids. For example, here in the public space we can see that there is a kind of a cross, and also in the buildings we see these areas where buildings are placed. In this area currently there's quite a mixed use, so this is really benefiting the walkability, so the people can easily reach shops from their houses. And if we look to the proposal that maybe has made, it's densifying the area, so we add more stories to the layer of the buildings. So even though we might not see a big change within the urban plan because the footprint stays the same, we can densify the buildings, and therefore there will be more people living in the area, and this has an immediate effect on the other layers. You can think about that the public spaces will be used more frequently and more intense, and also that the functions here, I guess mostly the shops, will benefit from this because there will be more people going to the shops buying stuff there. So, as we can see in this proposal from Edna, there's actually a difference in all of these layers. So even in the urban plan, we can see that there is, she made a decision to make smaller lots, and this has an influence, for example, on the building size, and this has an immediate effect on the use because it's easier to make this residential instead of this big block. So what I really like about this one is that we can really see the before and after stages of all the layers. One that I question a bit is the terrain one. It's quite hard to change the terrain because it's a given thing. But it's interesting that you even changed this terrain, and saying when it's more flat, it will reduce cost in facilitating these new buildings. It would be interesting to see the time span of this plan. For example, where do you start? Which layer will be the first one? I guess the terrain, because the others are built upon this, or will it be done part by part? This is interesting for the future because then you know how the project will evolve.
Here we see a proposal from Letitia. She lives in a low-dense residential area in Paris, which is very rare. In a proposal, she would transform this area into a multifunctional area with small commerce. On the terrain level, this wouldn't have much of an impact, neither on the urban plan, as the housing blocks will not change, neither the size of the house will change because she would like to keep it a low dense area. In the public space, it will have an impact, since now the green in the area is private. In her proposal, she wants to add more public green, and also on the level of the use, it would have an impact, as she wants to add commercial buildings to this site, whereas it's now just housing.
This proposal by Max, he lives in Gdansk in Poland, is quite interesting as a starting point because he looks at this area and he focuses of the function of the area in history. Gdansk used to be a harbor city, and this area was used for shipbuilding. But after the harbor moved outwards, this area was left with old warehouses, and also not owned by the municipality, but by 6 private owners. Could be a problem because it's harder to get all the owners on one line. But at the same time, Max shows that could also be an opportunity to start phasing. And that's really interesting about this proposal, that it shows the development over time. So he says we can split up this area by the owners, by the area that the different owners own. And then we have a first stage, and after that we can move on to the second stage and then to the third stage. The proposal is focusing on adding more residential life to this old industrial area. And again, it shows the function it has had before, because the residential buildings are still connected to this. He shows that these old warehouses are interesting to build lofts inside, and also are attractive for a specific public, for example, artists or well, maybe even architects and urbanists.
Here we see a proposal from Karen. He lives in the city of Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is divided by a river and a highway, which basically separated the city in two parts. Karen has looked at two examples which had the same situation, Rotterdam and Paris. In both situations, they added bridges over the river, which connected the two city parts. So in his proposal, he actually wants to do the same. Since Tel Aviv already has a lot of roads, he wants to add these bridges in the existing infrastructure. Within this within this new infrastructure, he wants to add public areas, and with that also cultural centers and public buildings. In this way, he wants to make the city more livable.
The last proposal of today is the one of Andrea, and I really like about this drawing, split up in 5 layers, that we can see a strong interrelation between the layers. For example, you can see that the terrain has a direct influence on the way that the urban pattern is formed. It follows the height lines, and even in the public space, in the areas where the trees grow, they're also based upon the terrain layer. This connectedness we cannot see, however, so much in the proposal, which is really interesting because it's about making a more mixed-use area. It is stated here that in this communist massive housing project, there's not so much diversity. So it would really be more interesting for the people that live there to create a more mixed-use residential and commercial area. If we take into account planning and making realistic ideas, it's actually interesting to look at where we are and where we are aiming at, because with a really rigorous proposal, we also need everyone to agree with it. So it would be interesting to also not only highlight the negative parts of the old plan, but also the positive parts, for example, following the terrain layers. So that will be interesting for proposing something new, that we do not only try to improve what is wrong, but also to highlight what is already there.